So today I'm going to talk about the correlation or lack of correlation sometimes between fear and faith. And this is really important to me to share because I feel very passionate about my faith, and I feel very passionate about helping people understand the role of chronic stress in our lives and how we can eradicate that. If you're new to me, my name is Rochelle Walsh, and I'm glad you're here. I have been a complex trauma therapist for many years, and I now help women in a coaching program to go from overwhelmed to calm and confident in their emotions. I have been a Christian for even longer. My faith is super important to me, and so I love helping bring clarity to this issue. In no way anything I say is meant to be competition for faith. Nothing could be. I have a strong faith in Christ. He is the only source of salvation, and so I really like to share about this by starting out by saying that that is the first place I go when I am distressed and, have those trials of life. And I love sharing that. I also love sharing that sometimes women are very strong in their faith. Again, never for me to judge anyone else's faith, but sometimes I know that someone is really leaning into their faith, that they do believe the word, they're leaning into their practices, and yet they're stuck in this chronic stress pattern that causes them to feel confused, like, am I doing something wrong? Maybe even at times, sadly, feel judged, like someone saying to them, maybe you just haven't prayed enough, or maybe, and they're just confused and they don't understand. And that's why I'm sharing this video. I'm going to use a personal experience that I have. At the time of this recording 5 years ago, we were dealing with a very long recovery with our daughter with a head injury and post-concussion syndrome. It was a very, very difficult time. I was a complex trauma therapist, like I said, managing a full-time practice, hearing a lot of traumas, and I found myself in a very high stress situation, and it was prolonged. And that's really what we're talking about is stress that has become prolonged. So sometimes this happens like early in childhood where the person's nervous system was wired and fired in a state of hypervigilance. And so they've just always lived in a high stress mode. They might not even know it because they might just have said, I'm just type A, or I'm just always going. I've never been able to sit still. They're the person that always pushes through, always gets things done, achieves at a high level. They haven't even maybe realized that their norm is a high state of stress. Or other times, someone has not always lived in a high level of stress, and yet something happens, and it's not just the normal, like life is going along and then something stressful happens and we have a stress response that helps us get out of danger, and then we come back to normal, but that we go up and that high stress is very prolonged, long seasons of chronic stress, where our nervous system actually gets habituated to stress. And think about it like this, like you weren't, and give this example all the time, I was not designed in my body to need caffeine every morning. And yet I have drank coffee every morning for long enough that my system has habituated to it. And now if I don't have caffeine in the morning, my brain says, give me some of that. Don't you need a little boost of energy? So we get habituated to prolonged seasons of stress, or it can happen through trauma. So when this happens, the structure of our brain changes, the chemical composition changes. So even if someone is, and I was during my example, fervently praying, spending time in scripture, really leaning into my faith, and yet some things started to happen that I realized I was getting stuck in chronic stress, nervous system overdrive. A few things happened. One, I started not sleeping very well, which I normally always sleep very well, but I was waking up a lot, not able to go to sleep. My mind was racing. And then I just felt really not present sometimes. Like one time I was going to work and I pulled out in the middle of an intersection, right in the middle of a red light, got hit by another car. And really until I got hit, just was completely in my head, not even knowing I had run through a red light. And then I also cracked a tooth all the way down to the gum. My dentist said I was likely grinding at night. So anyway, and my neck was feeling tense all the time. I also started just kind of leaving work every day, feeling like in a fog, like I just wanted to check out when I got home. I started having the desire to have a glass of wine to unwind, which had never been part of my routine. So there were some things happening that I was realizing. I knew I was in a really high stress situation. Again, my daughter was very sick. I was taking her out of state to appointments. I had a full-time therapy practice with complex trauma. And so I realized I was getting habituated to this nervous system overdrive, chronic stress, even though I had a strong faith and was devoting time to my faith practices and and I wasn't new to faith. I'd had a long history of a strong faith and Bible study and that sort of thing. But what I realized is that, and I knew what was happening to me. I could see the stress building up, and I had a decade of experience in advanced strategies like EMDR and other brain-based strategies. So, but you know what? The thing is about nervous system health, and we could compare this to exercise. You could know how to rehab a shoulder or get a six pack or whatever you want to do with your physical body. But if you weren't really practicing those exercises, you're not going to get the physical change in your body. So I had a ton of head knowledge and a ton of faith. And I also could not get to that be still place. Be still and know that I'm God. And I think that that's super important for us to understand, is that when we are in high beta waves, our mind is racing. We are in a protective mode, not a discerning, quiet mode. When we are in a state of stress, our mind is scanning for threats, right? And when we're in that state, it's not that we don't have faith, but we can't rest into and relax into our faith. We feel disconnected. And that's why I feel so passionate about sharing, because, we're supposed to be a light on the hill, and we are going to go through life's trials, and we are going to experience hard things, but we live in an environment where there's a lot of overstimulation. There's a lot of overstimulation in our lights. Our day doesn't end when the sun goes down. There's a lot of artificial stimulants in our foods, in our environment. There's a lot of noise, and again, maybe we've gone through, trials early in life or hard things, or we've been in go mode for so long that we're living in a high stress mode. And I share this message because, again, sometimes people can be confused. And so they're doing things, to try to gain head knowledge, listen to podcasts, read self-help books, go to therapy, learn all the things. But you can learn all the things, but if you're not practicing them. So for me, I had the knowledge because I've spent a lot of time and training in this area, and I do have a lot of advanced training, but it was taking that and then saying, how am I going to integrate this and really practice nervous system regulation so that I can get out of this state, so that I can rest in my faith and be still. And that was a game changer for me. And I started realizing that that's what my clients needed, not just me helping them get to that state 1 hour a week, but really practices that they could do daily, because that's how neuroplasticity, the principles of neuroplasticity, help us change our mind, brain, and body, is by practicing these things so that those pathways, habitual pathways of stress, so that we can start to replace those and we can live in parasympathetic, rest and digest, nervous system dominance. So rather than being in chronic fight or flight, we want our norm to be rest and digest. And so if you're wondering, how can I have a strong faith and you not be able to relax into it? How is that even possible? I want you to really challenge yourself to expand your thinking about this, because you could have a strong faith and have an ulcer. You could have a strong faith and have a cavity. You can have a strong faith and have, a pain syndrome. You can have a strong faith and have Alzheimer's. So you can have a strong faith and be stuck in chronic fight or flight. We know that we can see higher levels of cortisol, norepinephrine, adrenaline, and those things. We know we can see the impact that stress has on the body. Chronic stress is an inflammatory process. So what it does is, it causes inflammation in the nervous system. Another thing I learned when my daughter had a head injury is about the role of fight or flight in inflammation. And then inflammation causes your body to start attacking itself. And so if this is going on and you have chronic fight or flight, you're struggling from burnout, and then all of a sudden you start blaming your faith, or you start thinking, well, maybe I just need to take more time off of work, or maybe I just have all these random health issues. We can miss the underlying root of it. Because if you don't fix that underlying inflammation or really do the work, because once I started doing these practices and really stilling my nervous system, I was able to recognize that there were some core belief patterns I needed to address that were getting in the way, like feeling the need to always be the one to fix something, right? Or being consumed with my own timeline and how that healing was going to take place. So once we can work on the root of that stress response, sit in that stillness and have a healthy nervous system, then that's where we're able to connect deeper and really relax into our faith. And I think it's important that we take responsibility for doing that. As believers, we are to be a light on a hill. We're to encourage others. As women, we are the hub of our home. Our kids depend on co-regulation with us, and we want to show up in our careers, in our marriages, in our neighborhoods, in our communities with the brightest light that we can. So I think this is important to understand. I think it's important that if you're shaming yourself or experiencing judgment in some way, that it's not for me or anyone else to determine a person's faith. Sometimes, if someone's stuck emotionally or mentally, is it sometimes because there's a problem and a hindrance in their faith? Of course there could be. It's just not for me to judge. But I'm saying I've also worked with amazing women who are very strong in their faith, working with people in ministry, pastors' wives, missionaries, women who love the Lord deeply, women who, have a very strong faith, but they've got this physiological issue going on. And once they can get to the root of that and calm that physiological stress response, get out of that nervous system overdrive, their faith is there and they're able to experience it a lot deeper. They're able to get to that be still place. And we know that we get a new set of neurons every day. God is faithful. Mind renewal is possible. It has to be a decision. It has to be a priority. It doesn't generally change on its own. It does require something new. There's no magic pill that makes it go away. And so it does have to be a decision and a priority. But I tell you, that decision can impact not only your physical health and your emotional well-being, but help you to excel in your career, get mental clarity, experience relationships on a deeper level, be more joyful, more emotionally connected, and also be more capable of moving through your own emotional responses so that you don't get to that level of chronic stress. And so just all around a good thing. I hope that explanation makes sense. If it resonates with you, go ahead and follow me for more information. And if you're not already, subscribe to my channel, and I'll look forward to sharing more information with you. Bye.